I was born in the Badlands in the days following the Cataclysm. A black dragon by blood. Perhaps the last of my kind. My egg was stolen from my mother by the Red Dragonflight. Once they had what they needed, my mother was murdered. They experimented on my egg. They tried to sever my connection with the other black dragons, so that I would be pure. They were more successful than they had bargained for.
Greetings and salutations everyone. Once more I am back at it again with another character getting an updated model in patch 8.2.5 and us talking about them and their potential future. As planned, we'll be talking about each of the three characters, Zakon, Wrathion, and lastly, Kaliamenethel. Today we will be talking about one of my favorite underutilized characters, Wrathion the Black Prince. Friendly reminder that this is a pretty early stage for the PDR, so things will most likely change and be included later down the line in other videos. So let's get started on this discussion with, of course, some history regarding Wrathion first. Wrathion's story begins in the Badlands during the early months of the Cataclysm. There, a red dragon by the name of Wrathion had successfully managed to create a purified black dragon egg with the aid of a mortal champion. Unfortunately for her, her actions drew the attention of the black dragon aspect, Deathwing, who would have the dragon egg and the red dragon burned for their insolence. Rhea was a crafty red dragon though, and managed to get Wrathion safely to the Vermilion Redoubt, the base of the Red Dragonflight within the Twilight Highlands. After Rheastraza's sacrifice, Wrathion would be stolen 6 months later by the Ravenhold assassins, and would hatch. Through them and their operations, he would go on his crusade to rid the world of the corrupted Black Dragonflight, and with the help of a mortal rogue, he would achieve this goal. Once all the Black Dragons, including his father Deathwing, were killed, he would have his savior Farad killed in the same manner. As it turned out, the Ravenhold assassin turned out to be another corrupted black dragon, who the mortal rogue would do away with. Afterwards, Wrathion would fly off to the distant and mysterious land of Pandaria. In Pandaria, the young black dragon was torn by visions of Azeroth's destruction. A divided Azeroth with the Alliance and Horde at each other's throats would not long survive. So, he would tip the scales of the faction war so that the planet would not be divided and be ready for an invasion from the Burning Legion. A mortal adventurer would be tasked by Wrathion in various tasks around the continent of Pandaria. Through these achievements in places like the Heart of Fear, Mogushan Vaults, and the Terrace of Endless Springs, they would gain Wrathion's trust, artifacts, and power. 4 months later, when the Alliance and Horde fully arrived on Pandaria in the distant shores of the Cressring Wilds, Wrathion would involve himself in the matters of the Champions faction war, and see which side would gain his favor in the process. When the Zandalari had reawakened the Thunder King, Wrathion found many secrets and opportunities on the island that he could not ignore, on the Isle of Thunder. During these trying times, the Black Prince and the recently wounded Prince Anduin would discuss and argue the matters of Pandaria, the Thunder King, and the war. The secrets of the Mogu drove Wrathion forward. He learned that the Mogu are Titan of origin and were once defenders of the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. He learned that the Vale coveted something dark and ancient that called out to the Mantid. Wrathion would also learn that the Mogu's leader, Ra-Den, had grown silent, and it was Lei Shen who would take his power for himself, claiming the title of the Thunder King thereafter. Wrathion would task his champion with slaying the Thunder King and have his dark heart delivered directly to him to be eaten. Once eaten, the Black Prince would have yet another vision, this time one that was once bestowed upon the Titan Keepers like Ra-Den. The vision was that the Titans had fallen and that the Keepers must safeguard the final Titan, which would later be confirmed to be Azeroth. He would need time to digest this knowledge and would call on you again when the time is right. Some time had passed, and Garrosh, the war chief at the time, had infuriated most of Azeroth, including his own horde. This sparked a rebellion led by Vol'jin, whom Garrosh had nearly assassinated. During this time, Wrathion instead focused on gaining the blessings from each of the August Celestials, so he could bestow power onto his champion. However, he also kind of missed the entire point of interacting with the Celestials, ignoring their wisdom and guidance of each of them when doing so. Garrosh Hellscream discovered his prize in the Veil of Eternal Blossom, and would go to retrieve it himself. After battling Terran Zu, Lord of the Shadowpan, he would have the heart of an old god corrupt the pure waters of the Veil. This gave the heart of Y'Shaarj the energy it needed to bloom, destroying the Veil in the process. At this time, Wrathion and the champion would travel to the Timeless Isle and have their power peak when the champion bests the August Celestials in combat. This being a renowned feat, Lorwalker Cho and Wrathion each congratulate you and retell your legendary tale.
Wait! Let me make sure I get the story right. Pandaren will tell this tale for generations.
It starts with a hero.
An outsider from beyond the mists.
Conquering a strange new land.
Must we use the word conquer?
Venturing into forgotten vaults.
Mantid and Mogul alike were brought low by the hero's fury.
Their power and wisdom seized for a greater glory.
When war came to Pandaria shores, our hero was ready.
A faction standard bearer, beloved by the people and feared by their foes.
Even the mighty Thunder King fell before our champion's might.
One by one, the secrets of an ancient empire were laid bare.
Yes, knowledge uncovered for the benefit of the world.
Power acquired for war and conquest.
Let us stop for a moment. What kind of hero are we talking about?
An agent of destruction, forged by my will to forever change the face of Azeroth. Behold, latent Titan power, imbued with my own draconic essence, tempered by the wisdom of the Pandaren Celestials. Overwhelming power. Use it to heal or destroy, to protect or annihilate.
My friend, please think carefully about the legacy you will leave behind.
Come to me, champion. Collect your well-earned reward.
How will the story end?
There is only one way to find out.
With this newfound power, Wrathion sent his champion to confront Garrosh and his corrupted horde, and while the empowerment of Y'Shaarj's heart made Garrosh difficult to defeat, the Alliance and Horde would triumph. Ultimately, the upstart Hellscream would be dragged away in shackles to be judged in Pandaria. Though successful in their task, Wrathion was not pleased with the choice that Varian Wrynn made when not dismantling the Horde.
You were there! Is it true, then, what happened in Orgrimmar? That fool king. I did everything in my power. The whole world was his. He needed only seize it. Oh, sure, another year of fighting, enormous casualties trying to take Thunder Bluff, but the rest of the Horde would have caved eventually. Tong! Drink! Now! What? Yes, I was backing the Alliance. I thought Hellscream's victory was assured before he turned half of his Horde against him, so I changed my allegiance. Oh, don't look so surprised. I'm a black dragon. My loyalties are my own. But that idiot, idiot Rin. High King indeed. Why did he allow another war chief? He could have united the world under the Alliance banner. What a fool I was to trust his ambition. Should have taken over the throne room myself, like Auntie Onyxia. Get things done.
Enough!
What?
Talk. Always you speak, never do you listen. You ignore the lessons of Pandaria. You see, there is balance in all things. Wisdom etched in our very fur, black and white, darkness and light. When the last emperor hid our land from the rest of the world, he also preserved the homeland of our ancient enemy, the Mantid. Why did he do this? He did so to keep the land whole. Living with the Mantid for 10,000 years has made us both strong. So it is with your alliance and your horde. They are not strong despite one another. They are strong because of one another. You mistake your greatest strength for weakness. Do you see this?
You're just a waiter. I promise you this. I will stop at nothing to prepare this world for the battle to come. Next time, I will leave nothing to chance. Nothing!
He destroyed my inn. He left no tip. He is not nice.
With this, Wrathion would fly off, leaving his champion behind, coming up with a new plan to prepare Azeroth for the coming storm. This involved the bronze dragon Kairos' ingenuity, where he and Wrathion would spring Garrosh free from his fate at the White Tiger's temple. The initial plan was to have Garrosh rally the orcs from an alternate timeline and have them be the united vanguard against the Legion with modern-day weaponry that Garrosh and his corrupted horde had created. But the two dragons underestimated Hellscream, who choked the life from Kairos Doru and set off to create the Iron Horde under no shackles to anyone or anything. There would be rumors of Wrathion being on the ultimate Draenor and visiting Admiral Taylor's garrison as both a fugitive and guest. He would warn the Admiral of what was to come of his base, while also taking his best men to parts unknown. The last time Wrathion is seen on Draenor is when his former champion goes to Khadgar's tower in Talador to confront Cordana. He flies off immediately when spotted though. Thanks to the alternate timeline, a Gul'dan was brought forth into our Azeroth by a dying Archimonde, after the Eridar was defeated by a united Draenor. Through this, the Burning Legion was brought in full force by the Warlock, resulting in many deaths, including the High King Varian Wrynn and Warchief Vol'jin. Wrathion would wander Azeroth during its Great Crisis. At one point, he was in Dragonblight when Chromie was investigating her own death. The Bronze Dragon accused Wrathion as possibly being the culprit, to which he would deny and be disappointed by such an assumption. The Black Prince even helped out by pointing the demonic infestation in the Obsidian Dragon Shrine, controlling the undead, trying to kill Chromie. Also during Legion, it is discovered that another black dragon is alive and in the guise of a High Mountain Tauren by the name of Ebonhorn. Ebonhorn is loyal to Holn's lineage as thanks for Holn saving him from the same fate that befell all of the Black Dragonflight. This makes Wrathion and Abessian the only two black dragons who have escaped a corrupted fate at this time, both thanks to the actions of mortals. Once the Legion is defeated, the events of Battle for Azeroth take place, and while Wrathion had not been heard of for quite some time, his agents were all seen around Azeroth. A perplexing event can take place during an island expedition where a flock of black dragons is seen trying to take Azerite for themselves. The reason it's perplexing is due to the fact that Wrathion wiped out most of the Black Dragons on Azeroth. However, it is soon discovered through one of his Black Talon agents that these Black Dragons apparently were coming from a place known as the Dragon Isles, which Wrathion is trying to find. And that is where we leave off with what we know so far in-game. However, there are spoilers to be found on the PTR, so let's explore those delicious spoilers. Alright, so one of the things that the Dragonflights have been trying to do is heal Azeroth with the power of their flights. Ebessian or Ebonhorn represents the Black Dragonflight, as most of his flight are either extinct, crazy, MIA, or on Outlands. With the events of Rise of Azshara, the only remaining old god, N'Zoth, is broken free and is already starting trouble, this time with Ebonhorn. Ebonhorn, whom has had trouble in the past with the corruption of the Void, despite supposedly being cleansed by the Hammer of Khaz'goroth, is once more struggling against the whispers of the old gods. He is contained by Mother, while Calyx suggests that Wrathion might be the key to saving Ebonhorn. We go on a wild goose chase around Azeroth from the Veiled Stair, Blackrock Mountain, and lastly Karazhan, dealing with N'Zoth minions along the way, as it would appear Wrathion is a great threat to N'Zoth, for whatever reason. Within Karazhan, we learn through Wrathion's notes that the young Black Prince had undergone a form of transformation, or dragon puberty, as I like to call it. He sounds far more apologetic and mature from his brash and arrogant self from the past, even choosing to listen to Lorwalker Cho and the Shadowpan this time, finding solidarity in them, even. I find it a tad interesting that the Shadowpan don't arrest him for freeing Garrosh, but I guess they have bigger fish to fry when they have threats like the new Mantid Queen and the Necrolord Mogu, who have recently awakened. Wrathion learns a lot about the Black Empire from Lorwalker Cho, and also learns how the Shadowpan coped against the likes of the Shah, which in Wrathion's view is the best method to handling the old god corruption. Outside of Pandaria, he also visits the Vault of Archibon, in hopes of discovering more things on the Titans, but to little avail in learning anything due to the Alliance and Horde's previous activities there. He was also in the Library of the Highborn from Shendralar in Dire Maul. He learned that the Highborn had studied the Void there, and through their knowledge, Wrathion deducts that it is possible that the Void can harm N'Zoth. Further knowledge on this was unfortunately destroyed by the Horde. Lastly, within Karazhan, Wrathion consulted with Medivh, where he learned of the Last Guardian's struggles against the Dark Titan Sargeras, leaving Wrathion with a greater sense of purpose in himself. I see a lot of similarities, almost, between Medivh and Wrathion, where the two ultimately created the many problems that Azeroth faces today, but both of them strive to still protect Azeroth in their own ways. Perhaps Wrathion will assume the role that Medivh once had and find the means to unite Azeroth again. And I don't mean the Guardian of Tearsfall, of course. After defeating an Araki, or Baseless One, sent by N'Zoth to hunt down the Black Prince, we collect the last of Wrathion's pages to his journal, where he states he'll be there for the true battle for Azeroth, against N'Zoth. Name drop. He also asks of us to burn the pages to ensure his own safety. We also collect the potion that he had noted in his journal that would cleanse Ebonhorn of his current corrupted state. We return to the Chamber of Heart to cleanse Ebonhorn of the Whispers, which it does in fact work. Wrathion's own whereabouts remain unknown, but he is clearly wanted by N'Zoth, and it's likely smart he wants to remain hidden after the conflicts that he had created, and what he is clearly capable of. Mother burns the pages for us after memorizing the information stored in them, now contained in her own database. Now that we've covered what we know from the PTR and past events, I'll throw my own speculation to where I think they're taking Wrathion. Wrathion has always struggled between the fine line of good and bad. He's got good intentions, but they always flop, and flop hard. Once again, it was Wrathion who sprung Garrosh free, and that led to the chain of events that resulted in the problems of today, which is something I had compared to what Medivh did. If not for him, we would have never had the orcs summoned into Azeroth, which led to the very story of Warcraft that we're all very well aware of today. So it's interesting that the two conversed, especially when they have so much in common. Wrathion has also strived to not follow in the footsteps of his father, Deathwing, and although Wrathion has remained on the path set on him by the Titans to protect Azeroth, he's still brought chaos in his wake. He's at least felt regret over his actions, even towards his own flight, where he even now understands their very struggle against the corruption of the Old Gods. With everything that has happened, and with how the Old Gods typically operate, I imagine they purposely even allowed Wrathion to do what he did, because it did lead to N'Zoth's eventual escape. Remember, it was Farad who freed Wrathion and brought him to Ravenholm Manor, and Farad even hinted that the Old Gods intend to use him for something. As a side effect, however, they also now have to deal with a Wrathion who's learned from his mistakes and intends on correcting them. But even with Wrathion's growth and nice hair flowing out without that hat of his, he still runs the risk of creating problems through solutions. One of the biggest red flags is interest in the Halls of Origination, which Algalon the Observer had nearly activated during Wrath of the Lich King in response to Loken's death. Essentially, the Halls of Origination acts as a sort of reset to Azeroth, and would wipe out life and corruption from the planet. This obviously should be a last resort, and, would kill everyone and everything on Azeroth. The fact that Wrathion is interested in this is alarming, as we know that Wrathion has been Azeroth first since his early days, and even with all that growth that I mentioned earlier, I don't think he's quite rid himself of that mindset, and would activate it for the good of Azeroth, quote-unquote. Another issue is that while the Old Gods would be purged, the Voidlords can always send ethereals like we saw in Argus, or more Old Gods to infest the planet. This time we wouldn't have the Dragonflights, Horde, Alliance, Titan Keepers, or really anything to defend it. I'm sure life would eventually take root again, but I don't think that new life would be as experienced or ready to face the void like the current living races and forces on Azeroth are. Sure, we could haul ourselves into the Vindicar, Outlands, or some other method of travel to avoid total annihilation, but I don't know if Wrathion would even warn the planet of this act, as that would also alert the Old Gods. So, ultimately, Wrathion could make a very, very bad decision through this act, and rather than saving the planet from dying or being corrupted, he would merely delay the process of corruption. So, here's hoping Wrathion comes up with a different plan than that one. The secret to another of his plans could lie in the Dragon Isles, which also could contain the MacGuffin that can save Azeroth without completely purging it. It would also be a good time to focus on some much needed dragon lore, and Wrathion could be our catalyst to going there. Perhaps finally becoming the Earth Warder that we deserve. Sorry Thrall, you just work better as War Chief or leader of the Orcs, my dude. And with that potion he's acquired, perhaps he'll be able to free more of his Dragonflight, like Sibelian on Outlands. Or, maybe, Murzon/Nozdormu, kinda free him from that whole timeline, paradox thing he's got going on. Ugh. Ultimately, they could take Wrathion in so many different directions, but I am just excited to hear from him again, and I'm excited to see what he'll do next. He definitely has matured a lot, and I'm hoping that reflects on his character when we see him again. Should any more information come up on Wrathion, I'll try to cover it. But that was my video on Wrathion. Do you think he'll be a savior or destroyer of Azeroth? Let me know in the comments below on your thoughts. Go ahead and give this a like, give it a share, and, well, if you didn't like it, I suppose give it a dislike, I guess. Ring that blasted bell if you want to get notified about this channel, by the way. Come and join us on Discord, we would love to have you for more discussions. Maybe follow me on Twitter to hear me more often. Join me on Twitch to see me play the video games, though I am on break for now. Or maybe support me on Patreon. A little help goes a long way, and I'd greatly appreciate it. All those in the description down below, as well as some other things. But until next time, my friends, see ya!